I want to jump ahead of Colonel Klein and just let him know as he's walking up here that we really appreciate the fact that you bought us cookies and chips, but next we would like beer.
That's the PT test. And I've scored over 90 once. That was last year. Which way? I'll try them. Okay. Before I start, for those of you who don't know me, too loud? I know it's really loud in back. Too loud? Too loud. Good? Okay. Those of you who don't know me, which is not very many, I believe, I'm the president of the National Guard Association in New Jersey. I'm here to talk about insurance, but before I start, there's been a lot of talk about recognition, and I want to embarrass and recognize somebody in the room today. The National Guard Association in the United States Roosevelt Award for Company Grade Officers was awarded to Lieutenant Ken Hewitt. Please stand up. She was one of 12 in the entire 54 to get that award this year. Now, part of the battle is doing that and putting a person in for that. That's more than half the battle. So if you're not doing that for your folks, shame on you. She's done an outstanding job in everywhere she's been, and she deserves that, and so do most of the folks that work for you. There's somebody out there that should be the next of the 12 next year that gets the NGAUS award, okay? So, having said that, I'm here to talk about the state-sponsored life insurance programs. By a show of hands, who knows that this exists? Fair amount. We also have a disability insurance program for full-timers. I know the captain does, but she's been doing homework on it. Okay, well, I won't get into the disability other than to say that as a full-timer, you are eligible for it, and it doesn't have to be done in the first 30 days you get hired. You can do it anytime. It's a good supplement if, for whatever reason, you come to drill and you have a vehicle accident and you can't work. It's out there. It doesn't cover everything, but it's a good program. Okay, I'll start with a little history lesson on the state-sponsored life insurance program. Back in the 60s, the National Guard was not eligible for SGLI. So if you did have that accident and you died on a drill weekend, you had no SGLI, period. There was nothing. States didn't like that idea, got together. Well, they didn't get together. They kind of came up with it independently, and many states started their own insurance programs. After some hemming and hawing and going back and forth, Congress recognized those insurance programs and passed a public law that made them official. And all 54, when I see 54 states and territories, they all have this program now. SGLI, in case you didn't know it, and I didn't at the time, is not a federally administered program. You can see it's run by the VA, administered by Prudential. State-sponsored life insurance program is administered by your state associations and covered by a couple of different companies in terms of underwriting. So why do I care about that little piece at the bottom there? Because it lets me stand up here and tell you about this insurance program, because it's not a commercial entity. It's a state-sponsored program, and it's a good program. I'll tell you why. Everybody have SGLI? Show of hands. All $400,000 of it? Smart move. I have that, and I have $600,000 more in a commercial product, and I have $10,000 worth of this. Here's some of the reasons why. SGLI, great program. Again, if you've got the 400, you're a smart person, but it can take 4 to 6 weeks to pay out. And the other thing I didn't know about this until I was doing some homework on this is the default for SGLI is to pay you an annuity. So you're not going to get $400,000 all at once. They're going to pay you an annuity on that insurance program. You can opt to do other things, but that's the default. The other thing about it is that 4 to 6 weeks is a pretty long time. If I die tomorrow, and my wife's trying to bury me, and she's waiting on that money, that's what is that? That's a problem. That's what it is. I couldn't think of the other word I was trying to help with. Problem for her, not me. I don't care. But the state-sponsored program will pay within 24 to 48 hours, and we have an administrator who's very conscientious about that. We have had some people who've passed away who've had the insurance, and as soon as he knows, within 1 to 2 days, that family has that check in hand. At a $10,000 policy, you see up there it says the average funeral costs are between $7,000 and $10,000 in New Jersey. That's not a Tony DeVito funeral. If you know him, he can tell you a whole different story about it, but it'll cover a funeral. And so a $10,000 policy will cover your average funeral. So the bottom line is immediate payout, peace of mind for your family. Again, like I said, I'm not going to care, but if my wife gets a check, that covers the funeral home and most of the expenses right there on the spot. And you can see on the left-hand side there's almost no exclusion, none whatsoever. No war clause, no suicide clause, no pre-existing clause. You're covered. What does it cost? For $10,000, $3.66 a month. And if you are, I see there's a lot of second lieutenants in here. Anybody commissioned since the 1st of January? One? I'll give it to you for free for a year. I feel like a salesman now. $366 a month for a $10,000 policy. You can do more. You can add your family members, and the premiums go up, and they're obviously cost more. For $3.66, you can get a Venti Mocha Cafe Mocha at Starbucks, or a gallon of gas, or you can get this policy for 1 month. I think it's a great deal. Automatic payroll deduction, so you don't even have to think about it. When you get your drill pay, it's already out of there along with your SGLI. You don't even miss it. So why do we care? Why does the Officers Association, why does the Enlisted Association, Sergeant Thompson, president of the Enlisted Association, by the way, why do they care? Yes, because we make money off it. We made with 300 policies in this state, out of a possible almost 10,000, which is not a really good number, we made about $10,000 last year. And we use it to do things like fund our legislative activity. AGR's 9/11 GI Bill eligibility, in August did that because they can lobby. Like General said earlier about being Title 32, there's some things we can do, Title 10 can't. That's one of the things we can do. We use this money to help do that. Reduced retirement age, 90 days overseas, Title 10, reduced retirement age for each one of those 90 days. And August did that by lobbying legislative activity. We also use it to subsidize cookies and chips and water. So we use it to subsidize some of the costs of the events we sponsor. We're working hard to make our association conferences reduced or no price, no cost. We can't really do that with 300 policies. Most of that money goes to our legislative, and we split it with the Enlisted Association. Give you an example of another state. North Carolina makes $300,000 a year off their insurance program. There's a lot of free things going on in North Carolina, I can tell you. So yes, we have a financial interest in it. You do too, because the money that doesn't get paid out in insurance claims goes right back to you, goes right back to the things we were able to provide today, the things the Enlisted Association is able to do, maybe helping funding a combat dining out, those kind of things. So that's it's selfish interest all the way around. So where do you get it? There's forms out in the back in the foyer. You can get them online. You can see Captain Nywar, you can see Captain McCoy, you can see Captain Dragon, Captain Mixit, anybody who's a member, and even if you're not a member, you can go online and find these forms. And again, this is not just limited to the officers in this room or the officers, period. It's also for the enlisted. That's how North Carolina has 300,000. I would say that they have about a 90% participation rate in their entire National Guard. This is open to the Enlisted Association. And again, we split the funds with them, so it benefits everybody. I have 5 minutes. I'm going to sing, unless you have questions. No, I won't sing. But I will answer any questions. Again, you can sorry, Mike? Yes. You can add your spouse, and you can add your dependents to this policy. Again, as you would expect, premiums would be higher for that, but absolutely. And that's on the forms in the back. You can take a look at that. I know it's the end of the day. Please don't rush out the door. Please take a few minutes to look at those forms, and I'm happy to discuss any of those details with you. Yes, that's totally different from this brief I put together, but the National Guard Association of the United States has a disability program for technicians. I have it, and it's there's a couple different levels you can do. It will replace about 30% of your income based on how much income you do make. The lower, like GS5, will get a better percentage of their income than a GS13 does, but it does replace, like I said, about 25 to 30%. You're way past my knowledge level already. But I can find out for you. I can get you some more details on that. It is taxable income, though, isn't it, Captain?
Are you a full-timer, Captain?
Are you full-time?
Are you a full-timer? The disability insurance.
So is the insurance.
Disability insurance is a technician program. One of the big things that has come out of this that the Colonel looked up for us, actually, how many technicians we have in the room? Okay, when you first signed up as a technician, I don't know how many of you, I signed up as a technician when I was an E5. That's when I first started in the technician program back in 2003. When I signed up for it, I was an E5, I was 23 years old, and I was invincible. I could jump off garage roofs and not have a problem. Not so much anymore. I never planned on having kids. Many of you heard me say, I will never wed, I will never breed. I now have a 2-year-old. So at the time I joined...
She's married too.
I am married too. I married a soldier to make it worse. At the time I joined, I'm glad that someone told me that for $6 a month I could get disability insurance. And it seemed like such a joke to me because I don't foresee any reason I would need insurance. At the time I was a GS6, so I was like making nothing. What was disability insurance going to do for me? Now it matters because that is the only insurance you're eligible for disability as a technician. And I tried, I applied, I made the state of New Jersey tell me no 6 different ways. You are not eligible. And for the females, that includes maternity leave, and for the males, that includes 6 weeks of paternity leave. You are not eligible for any of those benefits as an employee of New Jersey because you're in that weird place where you're a Title 32 federal technician, not a Title 5. And there is not a deduction from your paycheck into the New Jersey Disability Fund. So if you are a technician, you do not have any disability insurance unless you go through NGAUS. And I'm not telling you have to go through NGAUS, but you have to know your options. And for a lot of years, we thought that you had to do that within 31 days of hire, and the Colonel has found out we don't.
You can do it anytime. It's not like there's no open season. Disability insurance, you can go get it on the NGAUS website at any time. I will tell you, too, that premiums are reasonable until you turn 50. Then apparently they think I'm going to be disabled pretty soon. So just so you know. But up until age 50, very, very, very reasonable rates. I had the maximum. I had the basic plus, I think A or B, or I forget what they call it. It's decent. It would be, I think I would get about $2,400 a month. Which, like I said, that's not what I make as a GS13. But if I run out of leave, 30 days in, that's going to pay the mortgage. And then my wife will be figuring out how to do this other one and collect the rest. Any other questions about the insurance program? There's also some flyers out there for a wine tasting event that we're hosting that is Dick Vermeil, if you know who he is, and most of you guys are not old enough. He has his own winery. We're hosting a wine tasting up at Lawrenceville. It should be a good time, and we invite you to come to that. And if you want to talk about professional military associations, I'm happy to do that at another time. Well, anytime, but happy to talk about those things. Seneca, by the way. Seneca. Thank you.
Colonel Mr. Klein. That's all I personally have to offer you for today. I hope you got something out of this, but before everybody leaves, we do have one more man standing between us and freedom. Sorry, sir. The General would like to address you for the closing remarks, so I will be saying nothing.
Well, actually, first, I'd like to ask you to give me a quick round of applause for Captain Miskett for setting this up, Kim. Good job. And I promise you in the future you won't have to listen to me that much unless you invite me, but I wanted to be a part of this first one because I just want to emphasize how important I think this is, and I'm so glad we're doing it again. A couple of quick things I forgot to say that I wanted to mention, and again, it's all about communication. We have a fair amount of traditionals here. Do all our traditionals know that you can purchase TRICARE? Does everybody know that, by the way? Okay, good, because that's, like, I'm an American Airlines pilot, but I use TRICARE. You can't beat it. It's a great deal. So I want to make sure you knew that. The other thing I wanted to talk about with regard to career progression that I should have put in my brief, and again, my whole goal was to be a fighter pilot and a lieutenant colonel in the Guard. I never thought I'd be a colonel, let alone a general. So, but it's going to happen to somebody here. I mean, it's going to happen. It's just the way it is. You don't want to hear this at your age, or your stage. You think, oh, that's way too far away. But I just want you to be aware that, like, I'm the last generation of folks that are going to be able to be a general without joint assignment. And I don't know if I agree with the way the Guard's going, but that's a fact of the future. So I just want you to hear at a young age a couple of things. When I moved up to the state, one of the first things I asked the wing commanders was to give me somebody from each wing that wanted to get out of the Guard Bureau for a tour. And by the way, let me back up and say another thing. If you just want to be a traditional guardsman and do the min and do your 20 years, I am A-okay with that. And I get not everybody wants to be to the top. But you know, again, I want to make sure people know what's out there. So if you're planning on moving up and you want to be an 06 or higher in the Guard, one of the things you want to start thinking about, number one, is possibly doing a 1 to 3 year tour down at the Guard Bureau. And again, that's something you can kind of put up through your chain. And again, it's a couple years. We just actually sent somebody this month, so it'll be another couple years for it to open again. But that's just something for you to think about down the road. And then, like I said, 07 is going to require a joint assignment somewhere. So I just want to make sure you knew that. I know that's down the road, but now you've heard it. That's pretty much it. Again, I'm so glad we did this for the first time. Fill out your feedback, and you know, it's your program, so you know this was our best effort to put it together. What we thought you might like to hear. Hopefully, you took something away from it, but be honest with the feedback surveys and give feedback as to what you want next. And then the last thing I'll do, and I'll let you go, because I told you I have my notepad, but I was curious. I mentioned during my briefing the idea of communication, and do people feel they're getting the word, and I got the impression it's pretty bad. Nobody's getting the word. So what I wanted to ask you was specifics on that, as far as, if you have any, if you want to share them, what communication you feel you're not getting, be it from the state level, from your unit level, or I'm just curious if anybody wants to stand up and throw any of those things out, because nobody raised their hands when I said, does communication suck? Everybody agreed, and it seemed like everybody agreed.
Sir, Captain Dragon again. There has been a change to how we do promotion boards, and I kind of wish that would have been communicated a little bit better.
You talking about the enlisted ones?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Specifically, what weren't you happy with?
Well, I spoke earlier with Chief Morton about it. So we used to do promotions at the wings,
Yeah,
and
I know the whole program. In fact, I was the impetus behind that. But go ahead. I want you to hear say what you.
Okay, so other than just hearing rumors about why, we went to Joint Force Headquarters to do the promotion boards themselves. Is this on?
Just want to make sure I know what your specific question or point was. Yeah, well, it's anything, because I mean, that's a general term. I say communications. I can talk about that board if you want for a second. One of the things that I didn't like was the fact that our two wings are like worlds apart. And I've tried to do whatever I can. As when I got in this position, I wanted to try and do things to get the wings together so we share ideas and work together. In fact, most of you probably know this, but we have 108 folks that are assigned down to the 177th and vice versa. We've done that, and I'm open. I want to do that more. The thing about the enlisted boards was, it was apparent to us that it was vastly different the way it was handled between the two wings, almost to the point of it wasn't on a fair playing field. So I got together, with the chief, but I talked to your wing commanders on this, and we decided to change the program mainly to kind of level the playing field, but also to get folks together. And that's really why we did it. We did vet this to the wing commanders. In fact, under the new process, you actually have, I think it's better because the unit commander has more say now. Okay, it used to be, it would go through the whole board and get kicked back. And now it's in the hands of the commander before it goes up. Now, again, I don't want to keep everybody's time with that, and I don't know if that's a communication question, but all I'll say from communication is it was vetted through the wing commanders. So if it didn't get down to your level and you get input, that's kind of on them. Now, I'm not passing the buck, but that's what happened. I mean, but I'm glad you asked the question, because myself and Chief, it was kind of one of my pushes, because I want to do whatever I can to get the wings sharing resources more. And because, again, people power, again, the more we, it was always us and them when I was down there for too long, and I'm trying to break that barrier. Okay, anything else? I know I'm between the weekend, some of you have drill. All right, well, again, I can't thank you enough for coming in.